How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Reaper blog tutorial. This is what's new in Reaper 7.62, and there's a ton of new changes for locking items, for the ruler, the markers, and regions. There's, so many great things about those, and we're going to check them out in this video today. We're going to start off with some smaller items. Ripple. Add setting for ripple all to affect regions and markers. Toolbars. Add context menu action to vertically align main toolbar, top, center, and bottom. Faders. Add preference to ignore mouse click unless directly on fader handle. Here's the main toolbar, and if we go over to the Ripple Edit button and right-click on it, we have this new option for ripple editing to affect the regions and markers. So let me just put in some regions and put in, let's do a marker there. And a marker there. Doesn't really matter, just for example. If I enable ripple editing for all tracks, then if I can move all markers and regions. If I right click and then set this to off for affecting regions and markers, that's no longer the case. But it will affect other items on other tracks in ripple all mode. Now also this main toolbar, we have the option of changing the vertical alignment. So as you'll see later in this video, there are reasons to extend this section here for the region and marker lanes. And now we can choose to have this aligned center, which is the default, to the top, so that toolbar will stay at the top, or align it to the bottom. And I think probably for my use, I'm going to keep it at the bottom. I think that looks the best. I'm going to float the mixer over here and preferences, editing behavior, mouse, and we have this new option, ignore mouse clicks unless directly on fader handle. Right, so let's start with that turned off. This will be the default. If we click in the fader path, anywhere from top to bottom vertically, the fader jumps to that position. If we turn on this option, now you must drag the fader for the volume to move. This is something that I've seen requested quite a lot. You might just want to be selecting a track and the fader jumps up and makes a big noise, and you don't want that. So I think that's probably a good setting to enable. Locking. Add action to lock all items on selected tracks. Respect marker and media item locking when moving regions with contents. Add media item locking page. Add preference for whether media item properties, dialog edits, and item properties actions apply to locked items. Add preference to prevent copying locked items. Do not preserve item lock when copying pasting. Items grouped with locked items are handled as locked items when ripple editing and region editing. Respect item lock when splitting, inserting time in project, and removing time from project. All right, so in this project, I've got some items here, and I'm going to lock one of these. So that's Command L for me, but you can always right click and then go to lock item from the item settings menu. And that's just to prevent accidental edits or movement. So I can't adjust the volume, I can't add fades, I can't move it, I can't split it, I can put an item on top of it, but it's not going to be affected, it's not going to be trimmed, even if trim contents behind media items when editing is enabled. Looking at the new lock item settings, which will be under media item locking, actions and media item properties edits apply to locked items. Allow copying locked items. Region editing and inserting removing time affects locked items. Locked item ripple editing behavior, unaffected by ripple, affected by ripple, ignoring the lock, or interrupting. I believe I've shown these before in another video, but maybe we should cover those a second time as well. So these three are new, and they allow you to do certain actions to your locked items, but they're optional. So if we go to item properties, and let's say we got 2 items selected. So it says at the top of the item properties window, 2 items selected. Let's set the volume down a bit, -8. I'm going to press Shift Enter, and that will apply. And we can see here, based on velocity x 0.39, velocity adjustment, instead of volume, but same thing. It is applying even though that item is locked, right? I can add in a fade of 1 second, and that applies even to a locked item. So that's corresponding to this first option here, actions and media item property edits apply to locked items. So having that off will prevent those sorts of changes. Allow copying locked items. So copying a locked item, select it, copy, move here, paste, no problem. You can also hold down the Command key on Mac or Control key on Windows and drag it, and that makes a copy. When you're drag copying a item, it does not get locked. So the copy of the item is no longer locked. But if you do that copy paste function, it is locked, okay? When it comes to ripple editing for all tracks, and I go to, we just check the setting, locked items are unaffected by ripple. That means that if I move this, everything before and after gets moved. Well, not before. The item before the locked item moves, the items after it move, but this locked item does not. And based on my other settings here, ripple edit affects marker regions and markers. I can move those as well. Going back to preferences, ripple is interrupted by locked items. Would mean that if there's a locked item on a track, ripple editing only affects the area before the locked item, right? So if I split this, these items move together, but everything after the locked item is interrupted. Let's go to that last option, lock ignored. Ripple editing all will affect everything, even if an item is locked. So lots of preferences there for getting this exactly the way that you like. Yep, and you can always change these at any time, to make a special adjustment to a project and then change it back to your defaults. When these are all checked, this is kind of default Reaper behavior. Set it however you like. There's a new action to lock all items on the selected track. And so that looks like this. That's locking all items. Clicking again can unlock it. And I think it might be kind of helpful to have this in your mouse modifiers. So if we go to mouse modifiers, track control panel, double click, and I assigned this earlier for control, double click on the track control panel, lock all items on selected tracks. So I got a track selected, control, double click. That is toggling locking for every item on that track. So if you use item locks a lot, I think that's probably a really cool option. And now we're going to talk about changes to the ruler. Add support for ruler lanes. Add ruler lane manager dialog. Support setting ruler lanes to different time bases. Support locking individual ruler lanes. Add support for setting separate default lanes for new regions and markers. Display lane headers to the left of the ruler. Support custom colors for region marker lanes. Support showing, hiding all regions or markers. So there's actually a ton going into this. It's an overwhelming amount of information in the changelog, and because it's in different categories that all sort of interlink, it's going to be tough, but hopefully we'll learn a lot. Looking back to previous versions of Reaper, we've always had a few different lanes above the ruler where we can have regions, markers, tempo markers, right? And if there was multiples, they would kind of stack. And if there was room, you would see multiple rows. They were sort of dynamic. They would show and hide kind of as needed. They would overlap as needed. But you couldn't show and hide only certain rows. You couldn't you couldn't really use a specific lane for specific things. couldn't have like a certain lane that new markers went into. And regions and markers couldn't share the same lane. So now there is all of that and more. So it's really awesome. So let's zoom in here a little bit more. So I don't know, I'm at like 300% here so that you can see. This is a region lane and a marker lane, and these are independent, but check this out. I can just lift it up and it goes into the same lane. Isn't that cool? Let's right click and then go to Ruler Lane Manager. So this is a new window for managing ruler lanes. So we've got 2 lanes. One is set to be the default for regions. One is set to the default for markers, but we could set one of them as the default when you're creating a marker or region to go there. But I'm going to put that back for now, and I'm going to add in another lane. So we can actually have 3, 4, 10 marker lanes and use them for different purposes throughout the project. We can even label things. So lane name could be song structure. And lane 2 could be notes, right? We can leave ourselves notes within the marker lane. With one of these lanes selected, we can duplicate the lane, and all the markers within that, the notes and everything else will be duplicated along with it. That new lane won't become the default if you duplicate it. We can, of course, remove one. This first column is our color option, so it will be that color. This doesn't affect other manually colored markers and or auto-colored markers. And these markers here were auto-colored. Not sure why that marker was duplicated, but there you go. We have this option to collapse lanes when ruler is too small. So I'm going to shrink this area, and now we lose the names, we lose the divisions of things there. Let's put this in that lane, this in this lane. So there's a empty lane, and they sort of all mash into one lane if we shrink that ruler height. I've got a marker on ruler lane 4. If I delete this lane, it goes up into the default lane. So that's good. So for the show and hide options for regions and markers, we can uncheck regions, we can uncheck markers, we can hide the lanes like that. It's all lanes hiding. We can show and hide those lanes with one toggle. I showed before that you can move markers and regions around between the different lanes. So that's going to be under mouse modifiers. Region edge or marker is the left and right edges of something. So this context got renamed. What was it? It used to be marker used to be up here, and then all the region and ruler stuff was down here, so it was a little confusing. So now region edge or marker, because they behave the same way. Moving the region edge or a marker, holding shift is ignoring the snap setting, ignoring snap to grid. We can copy markers holding down command. We can copy marker ignoring snap, holding command shift, or that would be control shift. And do we have any other options here? Move between lanes only could be a good one. So it won't move left and right, it will only move up and down. And that's it for region edge or marker. If we go to the region mouse modifiers, I added this one here, between lanes only. We can move region and contents. We can move, but not the contents. Move region and contents is the default. If I move this region somewhere else, it's going to take all of the content, everything in the vertical chunk below when I move it, but not contents. So that's holding option. It's going to just move that region, just the sort of label for that section. And holding the control key, which is something I added, is only up-down motion, not left and right. The preference page for rulers and grid got updated. So there's this new option here, hide region number if region is named, hide marker number if marker is named. So these are off by default, but that's to preserve the previous sort of functionality. If I hit apply here, my start and end marker, you can't see the end marker here, but the number disappears from that. I'll apply that again, going back to numbered markers. And the same for regions. So if I shift double click, I can edit this region. So this is, I don't know, verse 1. And then hit OK. Now the number of the region is gone. Allow resizing ruler small enough to hide all markers or regions. So we applied that. And now we can really shrink down so much that the main toolbar becomes more horizontal rather than the standard two blocks. So that really, really shrinks things down. I don't think I'm going to use that one, but that's a cool one. Display regions with square edges on or off, and display markers with square edges. So the square edges used to be the indicator that a region or a marker was selected. They've made it to be just a white outline. One thing that is new with that is that you can actually select multiples and affect multiple. So if I shift click these and then do a command drag, I can actually duplicate those markers and multiple, and they kind of not ripple, but they maintain their spacing and they can be duplicated somewhere else. So that's in mouse modifiers, but I just didn't think of showing that until now. Right click here in the section with the labels allows us to bring up the ruler lane manager directly. In here we have these options of timebase. If we want our regions and markers to adjust the same way that like MIDI items adjust with tempo changes, we can set this to beats position only, beats position length rate. We can set this to time to lock them into the minutes and seconds grid, completely unaffected by tempo changes. So yeah, you can do that per lane now, which is really cool. Now that used to be something that we would change in project settings. Yeah, timebase for items, envelopes, markers, we would change this. If we want to shift things, we would set this to beats position only or position length rate, and then we might have to switch it back to time to move something else. And this is something that we might change a couple times in a project. This can now be set per region marker lane. Pretty cool. Going back to the mouse modifiers, if we set our context to ruler lane, we have options of adding markers and drawing regions in here now. So it used to be you would have to make a time selection and then right click in it, create region from selection or insert marker. The M key is the default for inserting a marker. But option, draw region. So if we're in a region lane, you just hold down the option key or Alt on Windows and create one. Holding Shift and clicking will insert a marker in the, whatever lane you click in, which is pretty cool. Now those can be set to ignore snap or not. And as before, an Alt click, Option click, will remove regions and markers that we don't want anymore. So to do this quickly, we can do something like this. There's a region and there's a region, and that was actually a little faster than creating a time selection like that and then hitting my shortcut R. See, there are actually overlapping regions there. When we insert a marker or edit a region, we have the option of picking which lane it goes in from this pop-up menu. So putting it in song structure notes 3, the empty lane 3, or adding a new lane or opening up the manager to create a new lane and things like that. Now let's look at actions related to these new region and marker lanes and things. Guess we'll just search for ruler lane. I'll see what we have. Action to add a ruler lane, and it will pop up with a name. I'll hit cancel here because I actually don't want a new ruler lane. We have the toggle to collapse ruler lanes when the ruler lane is too small to display them. We can delete specific lanes, so let's delete ruler lane 3, and that's gone. So that goes up to lane 16 for those actions. Prompt for renaming a specific ruler lane, and so let's just call this structure. Quick add ruler lane. It adds it in without prompting for a name. Show collapse all ruler lanes. I think that's a pretty useful one, just to like quickly hide all those ruler lanes, kind of condense it down into one lane. Well, not necessarily one lane, but you know, pretty close. And there's also shortcuts to hide specific lanes, and those are toggles. And yeah, there's 16 of those. If we right click a region, there is a new option of showing the region lane manager. The same with right clicking a marker. In the region marker manager, this is not the new window, but there is some changes here. We can see which ruler lane is a specific marker or region belongs to, and you can change that here. And well, that's about it. We can also get to the lane manager from that window, or get to the region marker manager from the lane window. Oh, and we can filter by visible lanes only. So if we have the lane manager open and let's say lane 3 is invisible, the region that was in ruler lane 3, which is marked as hidden, can also be hidden from this list. I feel like they've covered like almost every possibility. There were like 10 release candidates for these new features. They've been working on this for a few months, and I think they've pretty much covered every possible aspect of how to do this right. I think they've done a fantastic job. Thank you to the community for like being really insistent of how things should work, and all the different possibilities of what could come up. The only thing that I was thinking that should maybe be an option somewhere is like if you delete a region or marker lane, a ruler lane, should the contents of that lane also be deleted? I didn't see a function for that. I can't be the first person to mention it, but I haven't gone back and searched for that. What else is in this update? Wildcards. Support region and marker lanes by name or number to match only the specific region and marker lanes in the specified lane. And for the big clock, marker countdown, region countdown, wildcards. So I've got 2 different region lanes, one for structure and one for render. And in the big clock plus settings, currently it's showing a lane that's not even visible, right? So what we'll do here for the region name, we'll just edit this to be region, and then we'll do a curly bracket, and then we could do 2 here. And now it is showing the region lane 2, although I want that to be maybe 3. There we go. Full song. No, that's not correct. Structure should be 1, or maybe it's the first. It's the first. So if you do region, curly bracket, number 1, it's the first lane that contains a region. It's not necessarily the number of the lane. These are ruler lanes. They're not specifically a region lane or a marker lane. They can contain either. But yeah, so if I want the first region within in order, then that's how that will be. But we can be more specific of the actual lane. So we can do region, curly bracket, capital S, structure. That's the name of my lane. As soon as I finish typing that, I get ABC structure in my big clock. The same should work for markers. So let's switch this view. So I've got marker name, but I should be able to do marker, curly bracket, and then notes, and then curly bracket, and then, yeah. The contents is the same, but yeah. So if I put marker, curly bracket 2, even though the cursor is at a position that has a marker, it's not in the second lane of markers, so it doesn't show it. But if I move this one to the beginning and put it on lane 2, that should work. Yeah, maybe. It's a little confusing. Lane 3 is showing up when I marked it as 2, but not the most intuitive with the numbers in the wildcards, but probably get used to it, or maybe that will change. But there is also the count, region countdown. All right, I messed around with this a little bit to try to get this to make sense. I've got $region for a name, space, $region countdown, and a count of 8. This song's in 3/4, so it should actually be like a count of 6, let's say. And so I'm a couple bars before the next transition, and you can see that there's actually two colors here, and that's the region colors. So it's going to go from region B to region C. When it gets 6 beats before that transition, you'll see a countdown. So that's about it for markers, regions, ruler lanes. There's so much here. It affected modifiers, it affected actions, it affected preferences. There's so many, for such a sort of small feature, there's so many areas that have been touched upon with this. And yeah, I think they've done a great job with it. When I first saw this feature maybe a month ago, I was thinking, why do I need this? What's the benefit? And maybe you're thinking the same thing. Let's say you are a film composer, you get a film, you need to block out or do a spotting session of where, these key moments, and you want to have markers or regions for those things. Each scene change, you probably want to have a marker because based on the length of the scene, maybe you're getting tempo from that, things like that. Maybe there's some key moment where you need to have some certain sting added in or something like that. Or, whether you're a composer, sound designer, maybe you're doing both. There's certain things that you want to map out across your project, and you may not want to see those constantly. So having functions like being able to hide certain marker lanes or region lanes, or being able to have different lanes for different tasks, like, oh, that was a mistake. Let's tell the director about that. Oh, there's a VFX glitch. Let's get that fixed. Or just making notes for yourself, like, I need a door slam here, or let's punch up the effects in this section. As I showed earlier, there's the song structure, so you can mark things as verse, chorus, bridge, outro, intro, all those things. And maybe there's also like different riffs that are within those sections, and for ease of punching in and things like that, you're setting up a bunch of regions, and when you're done punching in, you could delete those, or you could just hide that region lane. So there's a lot of possibilities. I think, yeah, as I said, they've done a great job of, both the developers and the community has done a great job of making sure that like everything is covered with this. And there may be bugs, there may be some edge cases, or maybe there's obvious functions that are still like kind of not known, but great job, guys. But if you find anything, put the feedback into the Reaper forum, where the developers are very active. And because they've just released this, they are very open to tweaking things quickly and getting the next update out fast with those fixes, with those new ideas, things like that. It's very easy for them to add on to a function that they've just been working on for a month, rather than putting it to bed for 6 months and coming back to it. So let them know. And that's it for this video. If you've missed any of the previous update videos, I go all the way back to Reaper 5.0. I'll have a link in the description of the video. Yeah, if you like this sort of stuff, support me on Patreon or YouTube members. It's really the only way I can keep doing this. Thank you so much. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Facebook and Blue Sky. Support the Reaper blog through Patreon, and visit reaper.blog for more tutorials.